Hello. Welcome to my channel, Booktube. Shahnameh, the Epic of Kings. By Hakim Abol Qasem Ferdowsi Tousi. Translated by Helen Zimmern. Chapter 5, Rostam. Now ere the son of Zul was born, Rodaba was sore afflicted, and neither by day nor night could she find rest. Then Zul in his trouble bethought him of the Simurg, his nurse, and how she had given unto him a feather that he might use it in the hour of his need. And he cast the feather into the fire as she had commanded, and straightway a sound of rushing wings filled the air, and the sky was darkened and the bird of God stood before Zul. And she said unto him, O my son, wherefore art thou troubled, and why are the eyes of this lion wet with tears? Then he told her of his sorrow, and she bade him be of good cheer, for verily thy nurse who shielded thee, and reared thee when thy father cast thee out, is come yet again to succor thee. And she told him how he should act, and when she had done speaking she turned her once more towards her nest. But Zul did as she had commanded, and there was born to him a son comely of limb. And when Rodaba beheld the babe, she smiled and said, Verily he shall be called Rostam, which, being interpreted, meaneth delivered, for I am delivered of my pains. And all the land was glad that a son was come unto Zul the hero, and the sounds of feasting and joy were heard throughout its breadth. Then fleet messengers brought the sweet tidings unto Sam. And they bare with them an image of Rostam sewn of silk, whereon were traced the features of this lion's whelp, and a club was put into its hands, and it was mounted upon a dromedary. Now when Sam beheld the image his heart leaped up within him. He poured mountains of gold before the messengers, and gave thanks unto Ormuzd that he had suffered his eyes to look upon this child. And when 8 summers had rolled above their heads, Sam learned that Rostam was mighty of stature and fair of mien, and his heart yearned towards him. He therefore made ready a mighty host and passed unto Zabolistan, that he might look upon his son. And Rostam rode forth to meet his sire, mounted upon an elephant of war, and when he beheld Sam he fell upon his face and craved his blessing. And Sam blessed Rostam, the son of Zul. Then Rostam spake unto Sam and said, O Pahlava, I rejoice in that I am sprung from thee, for my desires are not after the feast, neither do I covet sleep or rest. My heart is fixed upon valor, a horse do I crave and a saddle, a coat of mail and a helmet, and my delight is in the arrow. Thine enemies will I vanquish, and may my courage be like unto thine. And Sam, when he had heard these words, was astonished, and blessed Rostam yet again. And his eyes could not cease from gazing upon the face of the boy, and he lingered in the land until a moon had run her course. Now it befell that when yet 2 springs had passed, Rostam was awakened from his slumber by a mighty roaring that shook the walls of the house, even unto the foundation, and a cry went forth that the white elephant of the king had broken its chain in fury, and that the housemates were in danger. And Rostam, when he learned it, sprang from his bed, and desired of the guards that they should suffer him to pass into the court that he might conquer the beast. But the guards barred the way from him, saying, How can we answer for it before the king if thou run into danger? But Rostam would not listen to their voice. He forced a passage for himself with his mighty arms, with his strong fists he broke down the barriers of the door. And when he was without he beheld how that all the warriors were sore afraid of the elephant, because that he was mad with rage. And Rostam was ashamed for them in his soul, and he ran towards the beast with a loud cry. Then the elephant, when he saw him, raised his trunk to strike him, but Rostam beat him upon the head with his club, and smote him that he died. And when he had done this deed, he returned unto his bed and slept until the morning. But the news of his prowess spread throughout the house of the king and far into the land, even unto the realms of Sam. And Zul, and all men with him, rejoiced because a hero was arisen in Iran. Now, while these things were passing in the house of Zul, in the land of Zabolistan, Menukir made him ready to pass from the world, for he had reached twice 60 years. He called before him Nadir his son, and gave him wise counsels, and exhorted him that he should ever walk in the paths of wisdom. And he bade him rest his throne upon the strength of Sam and Zul, and the child that was sprung from their loins. Then when he had spoken, Menukir closed his eyes and sighed, and there remained of him only a memory in the world. But Nadir forgot the counsels of his father. He vexed the land and reigned in anger, and cruel deeds were committed in his name, so that the people rose up and cried against the king. And men of might came unto Sam and laid before him their plaints, and the petitions of the people, and they prayed that he would wrest the crown from the head of Nadir, and place it upon his own. But Sam was sore grieved when he had heard these words, and he spake, saying, Not so, for it beseemeth me not to put out my hand after the crown, for Nadir is of the race of the Chionides, and unto them is given majesty and might. Then he girt his sword about his loins, and took with him a host, and rode before the face of the Shah. And when he was come unto him, Sam exhorted him with prayers and tears that he would turn him from the paths of evil. And Nadir listened unto the voice of Sam the Pahlava, and joy was abroad once more. But the tidings spread, even into Turin, that Menukir the just was departed, and that the hand of Nadir was heavy upon the land. And Pashang, who was of the race of Tur, heard the news thereof with gladness, for he deemed that the time was ripe to remember the vengeance that was due unto the blood of his sire. Therefore he called about him his warriors, and bade them go forth to war against Iran, saying the time was come to avenge his father and draw unto himself the heritage. And while his son Afrasiab made ready the host to fulfill the desire of his father, there spread the news that Sam the Pahlava had been gathered unto the dust, and that Zul tarried in his house to build him a tomb. And the news gave courage unto Afrasiab and his men, and they made haste to gain the frontier. But the grandson of Ferdowsi had learned of their coming, and he prepared him to meet the foes of his land. Then he sent forth an army that overshadowed the earth in its progress. But the army of Afrasiab was great also, and it covered the ground like unto ants and locusts. And both hosts pitched their tents in the plains of Destin, and made them ready for the fight. And the horses neighed loud, and the pawing of their hoofs shook the deep places of the earth, and the dust of their trampling uprose even unto heaven. Then when they had put their men into array, they fell upon each other, and for 2 days did they rage in fierce combat, neither did the victory lean to either side. And the clamor and confusion were mighty, and earth and sky seemed blended into one. And the carnage was great, and blood flowed like water, and heads fell from their trunks like unto autumn leaves that are withered. But on the 3rd day it came about that the upper hand was given unto the men of Turin, and Nadir the king, and the flower of his army with him, fell into the hands of the foe. Then Afrasiab cut off the head of Nadir the Shah, and sat himself down upon the throne of light. And he proclaimed himself Lord of Iran, and required of all men that they should do him homage, and pour gifts before his face. But the people would not listen unto his voice, and they sent messengers into Seistan, and craved counsel of the Pahlava in their distress. And Zul, when he heard their tidings, cast aside the sorrow for Sam his father, and girded his loins in enmity against the son of Tur. And he bade the Iranians choose out Zua, the son of Tamasp, of the blood of Ferdowsi, of wisdom in speech, that he should rule over them on the throne of the Chionides. And the people did as Zul commanded. Now the throne of Ferdowsi grew young again under the sway of Zua. With power did he beat back the host of Turin, a covenant of peace did he wring from their hands. And it was written that the Jihun should divide the lands, and that the power of Zul the Pahlava should end where men take up their abode in tents. And Zu ruled rightly in the sight of Ormuzd, and God gave unto the land the key of abundance. Yet few were the years that he commanded with equity, and Garzhasp his son reigned in his stead. But neither to him was it given to reign long with glory, and bitter fruit sprouted yet again from the tree of misfortune. For the throne of the Chionides was empty, and Afrasiab, when he learned thereof, followed the counsels of Pashang his father, and hurried him unto the land of Iran, that he might place himself upon the seat of power. And all the men of Iran, when they learned thereof, were sore afraid, and they turned them once again unto the son of Sam. And they spake unto him hard words, and heaped reproaches upon him that he had not averted these dangers from their heads. Anzal in his heart smiled at their ingratitude and lip wisdom, but he also sorrowed with them and with his land. And he spake, saying, I have ever done for you what was fitting and right, and all my life have I feared no enemy save only old age. But that enemy is now upon me, therefore I charge you that ye look unto Rostam to deliver you. Howbeit he shall be backed by the counsels of his father. Then he called before him his son, who was yet of tender age, and he said unto him, O my son, thy lips still smell of milk, and thy heart should go out to pleasure. But the days are grave, and Iran looked unto thee in its danger. I must send thee forth to cope with heroes. And Rostam answered and said, Thou knowest, O my father, that my desires are rather after war than pleasures. Give unto me, therefore, a steed of strength and the mace of Sam thy father, and suffer that I go out to meet the hosts of Ahriman. Then Zul's heart laughed within him when he heard these words of manhood. And he commanded that all the flocks of horses, both from Zabolistan and Kabul, be brought before his son, that he might choose from their midst his steed of battle. And they were passed in order before Rostam, and he laid upon the backs of each his hand of might to test them if they could bear his weight of valor. And the horses shuddered as they bent beneath his grasp, and sank upon their haunches in weakness. And thus did he do with them all in turn, until he came unto the flocks of Kabul. Then he perceived in their midst a mare mighty and strong, and there followed after her a colt like to its mother, with the chest and shoulders of a lion. And in strength it seemed like an elephant, and in color it was as rose leaves that have been scattered upon a saffron ground. Now Rostam, when he had tested the colt with his eyes, made a running knot in his cord and threw it about the beast. And he caught the colt in the snare, though the mare defended it mightily. Then the keeper of the flock came before Rostam and said, O youth puissant and tall, take not, I counsel thee, the horse of another. And Rostam answered him and asked, To whom then pertaineth this steed? I see no mark upon its flanks. And the keeper said, We know not its master, but rumors are rife anent it throughout the land, and men name it the rock share of Rostam. And I warn thee, the mother will never permit thee to ride on it. 3 years has it been ready for the saddle, but none would she suffer to mount thereon. Then Rostam, when he heard these words, swung himself upon the colt with a great bound. And the mare, when she saw it, ran at him and would have pulled him down, but when she had heard his voice she suffered it. And the rose-colored steed bore Rostam along the plains like unto the wind. Then when he was returned, the son of Zul spake and said to the keeper, I pray thee, tell unto me what is the price of this dragon. But the keeper replied, If thou be Rostam, mount him, and retrieve the sorrows of Iran. For his price is the land of Iran, and seated upon him thou wilt save the world. And Rostam rejoiced in rock share, whose name, being interpreted, meaneth the lightning, and Zul rejoiced with him, and they made them ready to stand against Afrasiab. Now it was in the time of roses, and the meadows smiled with verdure, when Zul led forth his hosts against the offspring of Tur. And the standard of Kawa streamed upon the breeze, and Mirab marched on the left, and Gustahem marched on the right, and Zul went in the midst of the men, but Rostam went at the head of all. And there followed after him a number like to the sands of the sea, and the sounds of cymbals and bells made a noise throughout the land like unto the day of judgment, when the earth shall cry unto the dead, Arise. And they marched in order even unto the shores of the river Rai, and the two armies were but some farsangs apart. Albeit, when Afrasiab heard that Rostam and Zul were come out against him, he was in no wise dismayed, for he said, The son is but a boy, and the father is old, it will not, therefore, be hard for me to keep my power in Iran. And he made ready his warriors with gladness of heart. But Zul, when he had drawn up his army in battle array, spake unto them, saying, O men valiant in fight, we are great in number, but there is wanting to us a chief, for we are without the counsels of a Shah, and verily no labor succeedeth when the head is lacking. But rejoice, and be not downcast in your hearts, for a Mu'abid hath revealed unto me that there yet liveth one of the race of Ferdowsi to whom pertaineth the throne, and that he is a youth wise and brave. And when he had thus spoken, he turned him to Rostam and said, I charge thee, O my son, depart in haste for the Mount Alberts, neither tarry by the way. And wend thee unto Kaikobad, and say unto him that his army awaiteth him, and that the throne of the Chionides is empty. And Rostam, when he had heard his father's command, touched with his eyelashes the ground before his feet, and straightway departed. In his hand he bare a mace of might, and under him was Rockshare the swift of foot. And he rode till he came within sight of the Mount Alberts, whereon had stood the cradle of his father. Then he beheld at its foot a house beauteous like unto that of a king. And around it was spread a garden whence came the sounds of running waters, and trees of tall stature uprose therein, and under their shade, by a gurgling rill, there stood a throne, and a youth, fair like to the moon, was seated thereon. And round about him leaned knights girt with red sashes of power, and you would have said it was a paradise for perfume and beauty. Now when those within the garden beheld the son of Zul ride by, they came out unto him and said, O Palava, it behoveth us not to let thee go farther before thou hast permitted us to greet thee as our guest. We pray thee, therefore, descend from off thy horse and drink the cup of friendship in our house. But Rostam said, Not so, I thank you, but suffer that I may pass unto the mountain with an errand that brooketh no delay. For the borders of Iran are encircled by the enemy, and the throne is empty of a king. Wherefore I may not stay to taste of wine. Then they answered him, If thou goest unto the mount, tell us, we pray thee, thy mission, for unto us is it given to guard its sides. And Rostam replied, I seek there a king of the seed of Ferdowsi, who cleansed the world of the abominations of Zohak, a youth who reareth high his head. I pray ye, therefore, if ye know aught of Kaikobad, that ye give me tidings where I may find him. Then the youth that sat upon the throne opened his mouth and said, Kaikobad is known unto me, and if thou wilt enter this garden and rejoice my soul with thy presence I will give thee tidings concerning him. When Rostam heard these words he sprang from off his horse and came within the gates. And the youth took his hand and led him unto the steps of the throne. Then he mounted it yet again, and when he had filled a cup with wine, he pledged the guest within his gates. Then he gave a cup unto Rostam, and questioned him wherefore he sought for Kaikobad, and at whose desire he was come forth to find him. And Rostam told him of the Mubids, and how that his father had sent him with all speed to pray the young king that he would be their Shah, and lead the host against the enemies of Iran. Then the youth, when he had listened to an end, smiled and said, O Palava, behold me, for verily I am Kaikobad of the race of Ferdowsi. And Rostam, when he had heard these words, fell on the ground before his feet, and saluted him Shah. Then the king raised him, and commanded that the slaves should give him yet another cup of wine, and he bore it to his lips in honor of Rostam, the son of Zul, the son of Sam, the son of Nuriman. And they gave a cup also unto Rostam, and he cried, May the Shah live forever. Then instruments of music rent the air, and joy spread over all the assembly. But when silence was fallen yet again, Kaikobad opened his mouth and said, Hearken, O my knights, unto the dream that I had dreamed, and ye will know wherefore I called upon you this day to stand in majesty about my throne. For in my sleep I beheld two falcons white of wing, and they came out unto me from Iran, and in their beaks they bare a sunny crown. And the crown they placed upon my head. And behold now is Rostam come out unto me like to a white bird, and his father, the nursling of a bird, hath sent him, and they have given unto me the crown of Iran. And Rostam, when he had heard this dream, said, Surely thy vision was given unto thee of God. But now, I pray thee, up and tarry no longer, for the land of Iran groaneth sore and awaiteth thee with much travail. So Kaikobad listened to the desires of Rostam, and swung him upon his steed of war, and they rode day and night, until they came down from the hills unto the green plains that are watered by murmuring streams. And Rostam brought the king safely through the outposts of the enemy, and when the night was fallen, he led him within the tents of Zul, and none knew that he was come save only the Mubids. For 7 days did they hold council together, and on the 8th the message of the stars was received with joy. And Zul made ready a throne of ivory and a banquet, and the crown of Iran was placed upon the head of the young Shah. Then the nobles came and did homage before him, and they revelled in wine till the night was far spent. And they prayed him that he would make him ready to lead them against the Turks. And Kaikobad mustered the army and did as they desired. And soon the battle raged hot and strong many days, and deeds of valor were done on either side, but the men of Turan could not stand against the men of Iran, neither could the strength of Rostam be broken. For he put forth the power of a lion, and his shadow extended for miles. And from that day men named him Tehemten, which being interpreted, meaneth the strong-limbed, for he did deeds of prowess in the sight of men. And Afrasiab was discomfited, and fled before him, and his army followed after, and their hearts were bruised and full of care. But the Iranians, when they beheld that their foes had vanished before them, turned them unto Kaikobad and did homage before his throne. And Kaikobad celebrated the victory with much pomp, as is the manner of kings, and he placed Rostam upon his right hand and Zul upon his left, and they feasted and made them merry with wine. In the meantime Afrasiab returned him unto Pashang his father, who was of the race of Tur. And he came before him right sorrowful and spake, saying, O king, whose name is glorious, thou didst evil to provoke this war. The land which Ferdowsi the Great did give in ancient time unto Tur the valiant, it hath been delivered unto thee, and the partition was just. Why, therefore, seekest thou to enlarge thy border? Verily I say, if thou haste not to make peace with Iran, Kaikobad will send out against us an army from the four quarters of the earth, and they will subdue us, and by our own act we shall make the land too narrow for us. For the world is not delivered of the race of Iraj, and the noxious poison hath not been converted into honey. For when one dieth another taketh his place, and never do they leave the world without a master. And there is arisen of the race of Sam a warrior called Rostam, and none can withstand him. He hath broken the power of thine host, and the world hath not seen his like for stoutness, and withal he is but little more than a weanling. Ponder therefore, O king, how shall it be when he may be come to years of vigor? Surely I am a man who desireth to possess the world, the stay of thine army, and thy refuge in danger, but before this boy my power fadeth like unto the mists that rise above the hills. When the king of Turan had listened to these words, the tears of bitterness fell from his eyes. Then he called before him a scribe and he bade him write a letter unto Kaikobad, the Shah. And the scribe adorned it with many colors and fair designs. And the scribe wrote, In the name of Ormuzd, the ruler of the sun and moon, greeting and salutation unto Kaikobad the gracious from the meanest of his servants. Listen unto me, O valiant Shah, and ponder the words that I shall write. May grace fall upon the soul of Ferdowsi, who wove the woof of our race. Why should we any longer hold the world in confusion? That which he fixed, surely it was right, for he parted the world with equity, and we do wrong before him when we depart from the grooves that he hath shaped. I pray thee, therefore, let us no longer speak of Tur and his evil acts unto Iraj, for if Iraj was the cause of our hates, surely by Menukir hath he been avenged. Let us return, then, within the bounds that Ferdowsi hath blessed, and let us part the world anew, as it was parted for Tur and Salim and Iraj. For wherefore should we seek the land of another, since in the end each will receive in heritage a spot no larger than his body. If then Kaikobad will listen unto my prayer, let the Jihan be the boundary between us, and none of my people shall behold its waters, nay, not even in a dream, neither shall any Iranian cross its floods, save only in amity. And the king put his seal upon the letter and sent it unto Kaikobad, and the messenger bare with him rich gifts of jewels and steeds of Araby. And when Kaikobad had read the letter he smiled in his spirit and said, Verily not my people sought out this war but Afrasiab, who deemed that he could wrest unto himself the crown of Iran, and could subdue the masterless land unto his will. And he hath but followed in the footsteps of Tur his father, for even as he robbed the throne of Iraj, so did Afrasiab take from it Nadir the Shah. And I say to you that I need not make peace with you because of any fear, but I will do it because war is not pleasing unto me. I will give unto you, therefore, the farther side of the river, and it shall be a boundary between us, and I pray that Afrasiab may find rest within his borders. And Kaikobad did according to his word. He drew up a fresh covenant between them, and planted a new tree in the garden of power. And the messenger took the writing unto Pashang, king of Turan, and Kaikobad proclaimed that there was peace throughout the land. Now for the space of 100 years did Kaikobad rule over Iran, and he administered his realm with clemency, and the earth was quiet before him, and he gat his people great honor, and I ask of you what king can be likened unto him. But when this time had passed, his strength waned, and he knew that a green leaf was about to fade. So he called before him Caicus his son, and gave unto him counsels many and wise. And when he had done speaking he bade them make ready his grave, and he exchanged the palace for the tomb. And thus endeth the history of Kaikobad the Glorious. It behoveth us now to speak of his son.